Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Max here, the CEO of Etermax. You're somebody that has taken the mobile gaming industry by storm. I mean, what you guys did with Trivia Crack was so impressive, and no one really created a trivia game like you guys did for mobile that has achieved the scale and the fun and interactivity of the social elements of between friends and submitting questions like you guys did. I mean, it really took the world by storm. I mean, I think within a year after it being created, it became the most downloaded game in that category. And it's still, this is the 10th anniversary, and it's still going strong. And you have a bunch of other, games you guys have been creating at Etermax, and so I'm excited to have you here, Max, and to get into your story.
Thank you, Ben.
Awesome. So, where did your kind of this experience and passion for gaming and entrepreneurship develop? Was it something, Max, that you had as a kid? You played a game, you got into it then. How did that start?
Well, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and that was my main goal. And I started realizing that, especially when I was a kid, that computing was the future and the present, right? And I started thinking about how computers change everything from flights to how we work in the office. And I said, well, I want to be part of this revolution. And I remember being 15 years old in the crisis of 2000 with all the stocks problems, the problem with the stocks. And so I remember I'm too young right now, but I will be in the next revolution. So I started studying software engineering. But my main goal was always to be an entrepreneur. I never wanted to be an engineer just per se, right? Actually, I never had a job apart from being the CEO of Etermax. Everything I did till that point was just testing things, doing things that could make my first money to support myself and then a first employee. I did a lot of things, and a lot of the things I started doing, I couldn't finish doing because of myself, right? So I proposed myself to start and finish businesses or whatever idea I had. I did that with with one of my projects that didn't work. But the next project I did was actually the first iPhone trading application in the world, which I later sold to TD Ameritrade. I didn't finish school at that time, and it started as just as a project for myself because I was trading stocks. And then the iPhone came out. I made the app for myself. I spoke with my broker, which was Ameritrade, and they offered me to deliver the application for the clients and get a percentage of the transactions. And that was my first successful story. I was just myself. I made a couple $1 million after a few years with that application. And that allowed me to actually start Etermax with a friend of university. And we decided that we wanted to be in that first mobile revolution, right? We were one of the first developers in the world. And we wanted to be there as a company and try to see what happened. We were 22 years old at the time. And then a lot of things happened in the meantime, like 2 years trying things. And before games, what we tried was to turn our mobile trading application into a social thing, into a game, right? So like a simulation. And our idea was to get this Facebook merged with a trading application. And the social aspect was very important. And we made it and it worked, but we didn't have many users. And so I started thinking what could bring us to the next level, right? And I always joke that I used to say in my company, we will never do a game because we are a serious company. We were making like financial services applications. So, but at certain point, you just start learning. You learn about your industry, you learn around the world, and you start trying to win. And you realize that what you want to do is to do something relevant. And that's how we came out with the first game idea, which was basically the idea of getting a game that was basically just a social experience that where the game was just the means to know another person. So we thought about a word game, a Scrabble-like game, and we thought about making it multilingual because we were Spanish speakers. And so we did it, and it was very successful, especially in Spain, which was probably the most successful game in Spain in history. It was 2011, 2012, which of course was the most downloaded game and app there in Spain, and until this day is the most played game among old people in Spain. And it was a financial success. I mean, it allowed us to just stop doing everything else and do game, but it wasn't like, something game as a game changer, right? So we continued doing games. We made a second game, a third game. The second was quite, normal. The third one was a disaster. And so I stopped what we were doing. Like 2 years passed from our first game, and I started thinking about which was the next step, right? I didn't want just to do a social experience or just one more thing in the world. I mean, it was okay before, but now we wanted to do something different, right? So my aim was to just get this word crack idea, called apalabrados or word crack in English, and make it for the rest of the world, especially in the rest of the Spanish-speaking world, because we were very successful in Spain, but in Argentina, for example, where we are in another continent, we weren't successful. Nobody was playing the game here, just a few players, same in Mexico, whatever. So I thought, can we make this like a Latin American thing? So I started thinking about a broader game, something for everyone. And I started thinking about trivia, and I thought, trivia is in TV always, right? Since I was born, there's always a TV show about trivia. Actually, today there are many here in Argentina, probably all around the world. But I realized nobody did that in the mobile space, so there must be a difficulty there. So we realized very quickly the difficulty, which was the questions, right? So when you do a TV show, you just need 20 questions in just one language, and you know your market because you're there. So it's very easy. You just go and find the questions, and you make the show, right? But if you want to do an app like ours, you need millions of questions, or at least 10,000 or 100,000, and then you have the problem, especially in Latin America, where people in Argentina, in Bolivia, and Mexico, we speak the same language, but we don't care about the same things, right? Same happens with the UK and the US, and so you not only need a lot of questions, but you need a lot of questions per country. So I thought that is an opportunity, because we knew how to make everything else in the game. Like, we were good at the social aspects, we were making animations, we were very good at server side engineering, and then this new idea of the question factory came out, and I thought, what if people just send the questions? That's the easy part, right? Like, just people liked sending questions. We received at some point like 1 million questions per day, but most of them were trash. That's the main problem. So how do you separate the relevant questions from the non-relevant questions? And when you have the relevant, how you get the best questions out of it, right? Because some questions are good, some questions are good enough that you say, well, it's a good question, but probably not that good, right? So the question factory is basically a system where people send their questions, and then other people, like 100 other people, just see that question and react to it. Either they say it's okay, they like it, they don't like it, or maybe there's a problem with orthography, maybe it's a repeated question or whatever. Actually, repeated questions is one of the most difficult things to fix. But if certain examination from a large number of users is passed through the question, then the question goes to the system, and then once it's in the system, it keeps continuing getting information about how the question is used in the game, and then we sort it because of those variables. So it worked. So at first, it was just a tool for people just managing questions by hand. So it was like a mixed system, and then we evolved the system into a fully automatic system, and then it became so good that we were number one in Turkey, for example. That we didn't know the language or the culture or whatever in Russia and other places, apart from being number one all around the world, right? It was number one in the US for more days than any other game in history. It was the most downloaded app in 2015. It was number one in Canada. It was number one in Europe, in Russia, in Argentina, in all Latin America. So it was pretty big success. It allowed us to, our revenue went 50x from one year to the other. Our company changed dramatically, and I again had the chance to just say, well, let's just sell this for a small fortune or a big fortune actually, and then just not work for the rest of my life. But I remember that I did this to be an entrepreneur. So this is the price for me, like working every day at Etermax and doing new stuff and hiring people and making more games and failing a lot, actually, is what I would like to do. And now we have a very big company, hundreds of employees. We make hundreds of games. Some of them are still active, and we're still releasing games. Right now, we're releasing a VR game with a whole new world that you will be able to access through VR headsets or even the cell phone, and everything's connected with the question factory. So you play trivia in this world, but the questions are still from the game, right?
So once you create this hit game, a lot of people like it, becomes the most downloaded game. How do you continue to have people engage with it, right? Because it could be a fad or it can be long lasting. Now is your 10th anniversary of the game. It's been around, quite some time. You launched in 2013 initially. How do you continue to make it relevant for people and retain the user base and grow it?
Well, that's a very good question. Actually, we were pretty unscientific until we released Trivia Crack, in terms of we just made things that we thought that were going to work, and we put it in the product. And from that point we started thinking about, well, let's make it better with iterations. So as we started making like A/B testings, we started getting data people and understanding the user, what made retention actually, which is the main variable of our industry, which is how much people keep playing, right? It's as simple as that. And we measure that, and we measure when we change something. We made an A/B test, and we say this is half a point of retention, or maybe we handle monetization or whatever. So we keep like making the game better, and at the same time we had other part of the company like thinking about revolutions, right? One was an evolution, and the other ones were revolutions. Like we made Trivia Crack Kingdoms, which was all about subjects. Then we made Trivia Crack 2, we made Trivia Crack Adventure. We made a lot of like revolutions, and now we are making our biggest revolution with VR and 3D World. But at the same time, we keep the old game and try to make it better in each iteration. So that's more or less how we handle the company. We have like this milking cow, and then we got a lot of research and development.
So you also experimented with filters. You had a filter with Instagram, and I think drove a bunch of users to you. And how significant has things like that been? Like having it available as like a web game and having a filter, like other forms of play besides just the mobile app.
Well, it hasn't. We made a lot of things. We made that. We made Alexa and Google Home game. We was the most successful game at the time. We also made, for example, things for other companies and other brands, so that they can gamify their experiences. And what that does is, first, it expands what you are, right? We are Trivia Everywhere company, so that's what we want to do. And we know most of the things are not going to be instant businesses, but it keeps the brand active in the minds of the users and the world. It keeps things flowing, and then we also understand things, difficulties that arise, and how we can use them for our benefit. One of those were GPT. We started using GPT from day one, and then we made a few advances with it. For example, I told you before that repeated questions, not same questions, but same semantic questions, which are written in different ways. It's a very difficult problem to solve, and GPT worked very well for that. Also, people do not have the best orthography in the world. So they do not write correctly, and people complain with that. So we made a standard for that, and then GPT is very good for standardization, especially among many languages. Imagine that. Also translations. And then we started like thinking about new stuff, like what if just you have a question, which is fine, but what if you have like this entity that speaks about the questions, right? It speaks about what the questions is about, or things that are related to the question. So we made this context, this AI context, and it worked very well. And then we put video into it, and now with the video, it's another dimension. So we made a lot of things. We made a Netflix experience also. So the idea for us is to make these businesses that maybe are not as good in terms of return as the main product, but it keeps the main product fresh, and also allows us to understand where the future is. For example, we were the number one the first game in Apple Watch when it released. Actually, we made it before it released. So we try to be always there, and each time we made our product into a new platform, we learn new things about how good our content is and how the new technologies will allow us to bring it to the future.
Mhm. So where do you think like your kind of self-belief to be able to build a company and make it successful within this category came from? I mean, like you mentioned before, Max, you said that there was nobody who created really trivia that nailed it for mobile and really created a great experience for that. You could have thought, hey, maybe there's a reason why people didn't do it, and it hasn't been successful. Why did you think that you were the right person to really take this on and to build something around this category?
Well, I would say that first, being successful like drives you to think you're going to be successful every time, which is not true, but it allows you to take this risk, right? Also, we had a 40 people company when we started Etermax with some experience. So, as I told you before, to me it was finding something that nobody could do, but we could almost do, right? Like we were the best, we had the best chances. So that's what how I drive my ideas. I try to see which is my competitive advantage, if you want. And then yes, sometimes you realize that it was a real barrier that was difficult. So I try to first, I want to, when I have a dream or a product, I try to think about the price, right? If it happens, like forget about if it will happen, but if it happens, what will happen, right? It will be like game changer. It will be the most important thing in your life. So I try to go to things that are more or less realistic, but really will change the landscape of what I'm doing. And it worked because when you're an entrepreneur, what you're trying to do is do something that it's not in the world, right? It's doing something different. And then when you do it, your new task is to continue being the best, right? So that's how you do it. So when we want to do new things, especially when you start, my main advice is to understand the problem, right? Not the solution, but the problem. You have to and give all the hours you can, everything you have. And I worked a lot when I was young. I still work, but when I was young, I was like, this is going to, if it fails, it's not going to be me. That's what my mentality, right? And then you have to be paradoxically, the other thing you have to do is prepare for failure because it will happen. So even if a successful person, which I consider myself a successful person, um, it works 1 of 10 times if you're successful, right? If not, it's maybe 1 in 20 or whatever. So being resilient and being able to get a failure and turn it into experience, I think it's the most important do. I think thing to do. I would say that people overestimate intelligence, overestimate, like preconditions, and underestimate the will of trying to win. Right? Most people I know that are not able to be an entrepreneur, it's not because they don't have the IQ or don't have the experience or they were born in some place or whatever. It's because they don't want to. Because wanting something very hard means leaving other stuff in the way, right? So everybody wants to be successful and a millionaire or whatever. Everybody wants that. The problem is how much are you willing to give up for that? In terms of time, in terms of being there and being the failure is just a bad sensation. I mean, spending a lot of time in something that doesn't work and your only prize is, oh, you learned something. It's not a good feeling. And if you don't have the idea of this being a path to your to the thing you want, it won't happen. And the third thing you need to accept is that even if you do everything right, even if you're the right person, it may not work, right? And so what you need to have that mentality of, if it doesn't work, I have to start again and I have to change things and I have to be better and try again. And that may take 10 years. And that's the mentality I have. And it really worked faster than I thought. And I thought that my success that I have today, I would have had it not even in 70 years, right? I would have been very, very happy if what happened to me at 28 happened to me at 70. And when it happened in 28, I thought, well, now I'm just going to go to the next step. And that's how I think.
How did you manage that also at 28, having that type of success, still remaining humble and, trying to be able to kind of to be yourself still and not letting it get to you? Like, how did you kind of manage that and stick to the fundamentals of scaling and really building out, what your dream was at the time?
I would say I always prepared myself for it, right? Like since I was a kid, and I was a millionaire by the age of 21 by myself, so that helped because you had success. I had a At the age of 23, I had a social success, so people would make me like interviews or whatever, and then I had Trivia Crack, right, which was like at 100x. So in each step, I learned how to handle that, and that allowed me to for the next step to be easier for me, right? I realized that success is just a moment, and it's a small moment actually, but it's really gratifying, of course. I mean, I really like when I see my life and what happened. So it's something it's really good, but you get used to it. So it's important that you just do the best with what you have always. So if you're successful and you start being cocky, then you're not the best. You didn't do the best with what you had, right? What you had it. If you are successful and then you are a miserable person because you don't like your life, then you failed. So it's everything part of a single thing. People try to separate things like this guy is rich, so he should be happy. This guy is successful, so he should be good with people. This person was like did very impossible things, so he should be able to speak about it and motivate other people. And those things are not connected. You have to work for that. And if you want the whole package, you have to work for the whole package. And that's what I try to do. I try to be better in every aspect of my life, not just in the financial aspect or in my just happiness aspect, right? The raw happiness aspect.
So, as you kind of progressed, there's kind of like there was a point, I think, where I mean, you hit I think it's now like 600 million plus downloads worldwide that you've been at. How did like operationally the company change? I mean, you want to of course have these fundamentals in place, the ones that help build this to what it is today, and be able to scale it. Like, how do you make sure that the employees are motivated, that people really are disciplined, that they want to be able to, they believe in this mission that you have? Like, how do you kind of instill that while scaling up the amount of people you have?
Well, it's again a very good question. It's difficult to turn it into words, but basically, I would say try to be the best leader you can every day and inspire people. Right? That's a very good thing, because people don't want to work for weak leaders, right? I mean, who am I following if that guy is thinking about selling the company, thinking about other stuff, or thinking about working less? Nobody wants to follow that leader. So be a good leader and learning. Like you learn to be a good leader by listening to the people that are being led, right? Then a lot of experimentation. We will building industry, as I said. We built the industry because it didn't exist, the mobile game industry, when we started. And it changed over time. It started somehow, and then after a few years the nature changed. So it's about trial and error, being a strong leader, and then getting the right people into place, and then motivating them and trying things, and then failing, and then trying new things, and then learning from that, and trying to make people follow a structure that we all learned. And then the other thing I would say that helps is to be very clear why you do things and why you change, because we are in a company that changes things very, very fast. So when I say we're going to do this, I say we're going to do this because I believe in this, and I expect this to happen. And I hear everyone like, you don't believe this is going to happen? Okay, right? I maybe it's a good argument or whatever. And once we all realize we're going to do this because we want this and this and this to happen, then we do it. And most of the times it doesn't happen. So we need to change things. If if you're not clear with that, and everything is like it came from God and now it's going to work no matter what, and you need to change things, then people second or third time you change things, they start believing in you. So being clear, being open also to critics and other ideas, because if not always when things fail is, but I told you so, right? So you need to make people understand that I told you so is very easy when things happen, but very hard before things happen. So as I said before, being a good leader is about everyone to be in the same table, right? And also promote good things like being good in your group, being good with the person you're next to, hiring intelligent people, but also, again, motivating them through the years. For example, the pandemic was a very special moment for the whole industry, where people that started thinking, well, I now work from home. Now I don't want to work so many hours. Now I don't see my colleagues, so it's difficult for me to see a clear vision. And we need to, at the time, we needed to build some tools. Some worked, some didn't work, and now we changed those tools. So it's about being there and trying to fix problems, just like we do with product.
So just the last question that I have, you've done a bunch of things in this space. You've created the trivia category with into what it is today. Like, what do you aspire to do next? What are some things that you feel like you haven't done, or games that you want to create that you want to be able to build now?
Well, I'm actually, I always wanted to do like a world, right? A world like what I'm doing in VR. So that's why I became in love with VR some years ago, because I think it's the technology that allows us to fully have that social experience, right? Mobile phones are very good with the social experience, but they are still not the same as being next to somebody else, or multiple people. And I always like, I saw the movie Ready Player One, for example, and I envisioned that world where you can just be free from the physics and be really connected to other people. And it's difficult, and we started doing it by what we know, which is a trivia, a trivia park. That's the place we are building, and so that's where I'm today. But again, I'm thrilled by technology. I like robots. I like fusion energy. I like space travel, and I like software. I think software it's very powerful. So whatever makes people feel chills when they see the things we do, because it's new, because it's a new experience, because it's something well done from an engineer standpoint, but also from a product standpoint, that makes me just work for years to make it happen.
Look, Max, I appreciate you coming on. Yeah, I think you have a great story. I mean, to be able to kind of try all these different ideas, try the financial space, and then wind up going into trivia because you saw this opportunity to create something for mobile that wasn't done yet. And the question, having the users submit questions and figuring out how to filter them. I mean, it was so innovative, the processes that you had. So I'm excited to see what you continue to do and to do next. And I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much, man.